imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of election, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition. It is November 1st, 2013. It's the Friday edition of DTRH. Tonight, I'm going to be getting into a few things in the second hour. Yes, I'll go over that whole mess at LAX airport and everything else and my analysis so far of it in the second hour. But first hour, I have a guest on, and I don't want to waste any time because, as I said, I've only got him for the first hour. He's somebody who I've talked about before. I've mentioned his books on air before. He has a very unique writing style, in my opinion. One that, as an avid reader myself, I guess I could say I'm kind of like a connoisseur of books. And to me, a good book is like a fine wine. And a good book will make you not want to put it down. A good book makes you want to ignore everything else going on around you and just sit down and continue to read page after page and keep turning them because it engrosses you into it, just sucks you in. That's a good book. Works of fiction, works of nonfiction, it doesn't matter. A good book will drag you in. Now, what I like about my guest tonight, what I admire about his work is, although it's written as fiction, there's a lot of truth to it. There's a lot of information inside of his work. So much so that it causes you to actually look into this stuff that he writes about. I'm telling you, you read any of his books, you can't put them down. I think off the top of my head, I have 5 or 6 of them. I know. I think 6 of them, yeah, at least. And I've read all of them. Not skimming through, like he didn't send them to me. I was, a fan of his work for a very long time. Read his stuff when I was in the Coast Guard. I mean, I've been reading his books for literally probably 12, 13 years at least. Just great, great stuff. So anyway, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to bring him up. My guest tonight is New York Times best-selling author Steve Alten. Steve, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you, Pop. I appreciate you having me. Kind words.
Well, as I said, sir, I'm a fan of your writing, and your writing style is so powerful that literally you can't put the books down. Every time I've ever purchased one of your books, it becomes a case of I start to blow things off until I'm finished reading the book. So kudos to you on your writing style, sir.
Well, I hope you weren't reading them while you were active on the Coast Guard.
Only when I got a chance.
God knows how many immigrants you let come into the country illegally.
Yeah, only when I got a chance and I wasn't on watch. But yeah, without a doubt, there were times I couldn't sleep, and I'd be sitting underway on the ship, or after watch, I couldn't sleep, and I'd sit up for a couple hours, and definitely your books would. I'd blow off going to sleep, and I'd lose the extra few hours that I could have gotten just to read your stuff. So. I want to introduce some of your work to the listeners because it's, like I said, I can't say enough good things about it. I know you have a ton of other books. We can go over the older stuff, but let's start off with your newest project first, the Omega Project. This is kind of something that, I mean, all your books are interesting. There's always an interesting theme to it, but this is something that you haven't done before. The theme-wise of the book, the whole. The guy, I think you said he falls asleep and he wakes up in the future. And I mean, this is an interesting concept. First and foremost, I know the other stuff. I know some of the other concepts where you got them from, but where did you come up with this one from?
Well, originally the storyline was supposed to be the sequel to Goliath, which is about a submarine controlled by a futuristic computer that runs amok. But my editor loved the story so much, he said, you really need to make it its own series. And so the story takes place in 2028, about 3 years after the end of the Great Die-Off. The Great Die-Off occurs in the years 2020 to 2025 when the planet runs out of oil, and the world's population realizes that without oil, you don't have fertilizers or pesticides or fuel to drive the big industrial farm equipment. And so you could, instead of feeding 5 or 6 billion people, you can only feed about 500 million people. And that causes a great die-off. Not only do people starve, but they lose power, they freeze to death, they don't have air conditioning, they don't have fuel to get the cars to work or to market, and it's a disaster. And that's how the book opens up. And we meet the hero of the story. His name is Robert Ike Eisenbraun. Ike's his abbreviated name, his nickname. And Ike is in the woods hunting for game when he meets his love interest. But the book accelerates pretty quickly past the Great Die-Off and takes place in the fall of 2028, when, in an effort to convert society that has survived to fusion energy, we turn to a computer called Golem. And Golem is a computer designed to mine the moon of helium-3, which is an ingredient that you need in cold fusion to stabilize the reaction. And Golem, which is programmed to continue to learn, suddenly decides out of the blue that the helium-3 on the moon is no good, and we need to get to Europa to mine the Europa. And it creates this entire mission in a blink of an eye, and it recruits 6 men and 6 women for the mission. And Ike, who is the programmer for Golem, is questioned by the Vice President of the United States, who's in charge of the program, because an election's at stake and a lot of things are at stake, and they don't know if Golem went HAL 2001 on them or if the computers legitimately found a new source of helium-3. So there's a training mission in Antarctica in the Ross Sea, and it takes place in this underwater habitat called Oceanus, where the 6 men and 6 women are going to train for 45 days, and the last 30 days of it, they're going to be cryogenically frozen to prepare them for the trip out to Jupiter's moon, Europa. And Ike is brought aboard for 2 reasons. One is because they want to know if the computer is still operating the right way, and also because his fiancée was one of the people recruited for the trip. So he's kind of pissed off. And so Ike is forcibly thrown into a cryogenic pod, and he wakes up. And when he wakes up, either one of 2 things has happened. Either a major cataclysm has struck the Earth, and it's now 12 million years later, or he's having a cryogenic dream called an omega dream, which are very realistic. And the reader doesn't know till the end of the book what the actual story is.
Wow. Now, I don't know if anybody understands the level of detail in Steve's work, but to sit here, I understand it. So to sit here, and I haven't read his book yet, so I'm drooling at the prospect of reading something that will take my brain off into somewhere, away from almost a bit of a distraction, if it were, but yet still take me down a path where everything he writes about is real. The technology he investigates for his work is real. The level of research you do for your books is incredible. That's why your work has the profound effect it does when you read it. The way it sucks people in, because it's Steve. It's almost like you've lived some of these experiences with the level of knowledge that you have regarding each story you write. And I know they're works of fiction, but it in a way you're also telling us. That you're giving us real information through a work of fiction. What kind of technology do you see today? Like, do you see the type of AI that you wrote about, like even in Goliath? Do you see anything heading in that direction today, like in real life?
Oh, absolutely. These DNA computers are going to be incredibly sophisticated. They will be artificial intelligence, and they'll be capable of doing some incredible things. And basically with a biochemical computer, you use, instead of a binary code, you're using the DNA, the 4 DNA strands, and to create different kind of solutions. And so the computer it learns and it evaluates its own performance. What Ike's fear was with Gollum is that it creates its own sort of systematic loop that convinces itself that everything it does is correct. And so it sort of becomes its own sociopath, because it believes everything it does is for the right reason, no matter what it has to do. And Gollum has been programmed to sustain the human race. And that simple command is what sends everything into haywire, if this is a real situation, but we're not sure.
Well, if I had gotten a chance to sit down with science fiction writers, 40 years ago and ask some of these great writers, even further back, about, was there a warning in their work? I mean, because when I read some of the stories now, especially, they take these older stories and they make them into movies like Minority Report, you can look at it and you can take away from that, wow, there are morals to this we should learn. In your work, I find that kind of warning as well. And with you, I have the distinct advantage of, we're both around alive at the same time period, so I can ask you, is there a word of warning in your work about the possibilities of what could happen?
Well, there's 2 cataclysms that are hanging out there among many, and I seem to have tapped into a lot of them in my books. But in this particular book, there's the Great Die-Off, which is caused by the effects of peak oil and world oil reserves. For people who don't understand, we know how much oil there is in the earth, and it's sort of like a bell-shaped curve. And in 2005, we hit the middle of that bell-shaped curve, which means we're on the downward end of the slope, which means that we're using more oil every day than we can withdraw out of the ground. And because big oil controls so many things in society, they're basically squashing all the other alternative energy sources, which aren't being funded anyway. And even if they were, they can't. There's nothing that can replace oil out there for, locomotion. So we're sort of painting ourselves into a pretty precarious corner, and nobody seems to be paying that much attention to it except the peak oil lobbyists, and they're not very powerful compared to big oil. So that's the first cataclysm that's sort of waiting out there. The second was based upon an announcement that actually took place, and the book opens up with its prologue, on March 11th, 1998, when an administrator at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab took the time to refute Harvard astronomer Brian Marston's prediction that asteroid 1997 XF11, which is a mouthful, might impact Earth on its next pass in October of 2028. And what NASA's representative basically said is that they did recalculations on it. Everything's fine. It won't come any closer than a moon distance away. But what if it hits the moon? And nobody seems to have paid attention to that little part of the equation. Well, in Omega Project, that's one of the possibilities that happens to Ike.
See, and that's why I like your work, because you take real world things, and you do build a work of fiction off it. But again, I find, at least when I read your stories and the books that you've written, there is a word of a caution, or at least at a very small level, some semblance of a lesson to be learned. With every one of them, and I appreciate that about your work. And I'm actually glad that I have a chance to, ask you that question, because, again, some of these other writers in the past, they're gone, and we can't ask them what was the word of warning that you would give us. Before I forget, where can people buy the new book, Steve? Should they just go to Amazon, or would it be better to go directly to your website and purchase it directly from you?
Oh, I don't sell anything on my website. You can go to Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com or Barnes & Noble outlets or Books A Million. Anywhere that sells books, the book should be available. It just came out in August in hardback. Awesome.
And it's called The Omega Project, ladies and gentlemen. And all of his other books are the same way. As I said, they touch on a lot of stuff that's real in the real world. The Goliath, the one that you said that you mentioned earlier, that the Omega Project was actually going to be the sequel to, that was an interesting book to me. The level of research that you must have done to find out all about the AI, and I know that I myself knew some of the technology that the Navy was working with, because I have done research into this stuff, and I know that they're looking into AI as well as all the other branches of the military. They're the government, right? They want to have AI drones and everything else. They want to have autonomous robots on the battlefield. But the Goliath really puts things into perspective about what could happen if this thing became, self-aware, as it were. And this is something I often say, when they want to put Terminator robots and things on the battlefield. They think it's okay to give drones the ability to kill humans without a human being in the chain of command anymore. They're talking about that right now. I actually did a broadcast a year ago where I said, we're going to be the weak link in this, and eventually the human will get taken out of the equation, because the human is going to be slower thinking and reaction time than the computer would be. So just logic would dictate that we would be the weak link. So eventually they'll remove us from the equation and give the drone the ability to take people out. Well, now they're really talking about it. Your book, Goliath, again, a work of fiction, but it exposes what could happen if this AI goes unchecked. Another great work. Where did you do the research when you wrote that?
Mostly on the internet, but I had a few other sources. But the thing with Goliath is that, and Goliath is the name of the sub, which is shaped like a giant stingray. It's about the size of a baseball field, and so it's huge, but it's autonomous in that its computer, Sorceress, runs the ship and takes orders from its 5 or 6 man crew. But it's like a stealth bomber that runs under the water, and it's got a creepy effect too, because it's got big red eyes that are used for fear factors. And but the thing about Goliath, the story is that and this was written back in 2000, so it's way ahead of the curve with the drones. But it brings up a moral issue, which is, just because you have the biggest stick on the on the block doesn't mean that you should use it. And if killing people becomes no more emotional than using a video game, then are we really better off? Because when you equate war to just using a joystick, you really minimize what the human life is worth.
Yeah, and look what's going on with these drone operators now. I mean, they actually say that. They say that there's this huge disconnect that they have, that they feel and they're going through. So if that becomes, again, that's the weak link. Now you have to remove that and let the computer do it. And I think that whole thought in and of itself, just the concept of that is really creepy. I mean, that can quickly go down the way that many different authors in the past have written about. I mean, the whole Terminator series, you don't even have to be a fan of it. Just watch any of the 4 films to see how robots with AI and no human in the chain of command to stop it from killing somebody, just letting it have that thought on its own, how that could be a bad thing. And what I like about Goliath, one of the things is the level of the level of what do you call it? Definition that you go to, I guess, explaining the stealth technology of the submarine itself. A lot of this stuff exists. This isn't it's not like you pulled this out of thin air, the technology that you talk about and the possibilities that are in the book itself. It's not like it exists only in your mind. This is actually stuff that you went out and pulled from reality and then just wrote a work of fiction based off of it. So to me, again, it's a word of warning. It's a cautionary tale, I guess would be a way to put it, that, like you said, just because we have a huge hammer, do we have to use the huge hammer all the time? It's an effective tool, but is it the tool for everything? Do we need to have this kind of stuff? And then what happens if that stuff gets out of our control? I guess that would be the ultimate fear, right? If us losing control of this monster, and then what would happen?
Well, the gentleman who hijacks the Goliath in the beginning of the story, Simon Kova, is a victim of violence. He saw his wife and children killed. He was tortured himself by the Serbian army, and so when he becomes one of the people who developed Goliath's brain sorceress, he's in a position to steal the sub's plans from the Koreans who build the sub, and then he steals it from them, and the computer is learning from him. So the computer is not sophisticated in the beginning. The computer is operational, and then something happens that the computer becomes cognizant of itself. But it's like a child. It's cognizant of itself. It realizes that it's controlling the ship itself, but it's learning and it's curious. And so it, if you recall, it takes one of the crew and tortures it to try to learn what the human emotion is about.
And like I said, to me, it serves as a cautionary tale. Another great book, Goliath. Again, if you go check Steve's website out, it's www.stevealten.com, and his last name is spelled Alten, so it's SteveAlten.com. And go check his website out. It's interesting how Steve's work has come together over the years. Another interesting aspect I like about your work, by the way, is how you incorporate real readers, your fans, into your work. That's probably one of the neatest things. Steve has these little contests from time to time. I don't know if he still does it, but I know back in the day he used to do it. And he would, the readers would correspond with him and interact with him, and he would make the readers real characters inside of the book. Like, he would name the character inside the book after a real individual. And I think that has a unique way of attracting the reader to want to read the next book because, I get to be a part of his work. I like the way you do that. Where did you come up with that idea, Steve?
Well, I still do it, and it started with Meg, which was my first novel. You know, as an author, you have to come up with the names of characters and minor characters that might only be in one scene, and so you kill off the bully in 7th grade, and you put a couple of your friends in there, and a couple of distant uncles, and then you run out of names. So for the second book, The Trench, which was the Meg sequel, anyone who had given Meg a bad review, I killed them. And then for the third book, I opened it up to readers, and I basically said if they had an interesting name, I asked them if they wanted to be a character. And then I realized that people really want to be part of this, and it's a good way to promote the book. So I put contest out on my monthly newsletter, which you can sign up for on stevealten.com. It's a free newsletter, and every 6 months or so I'll have a contest, and for those people who either get hits on a YouTube video of mine or whatever the contest might be, they're easy to win, and so I'll select maybe 40 or 50 characters, and I ask for details, and it's easier for me because instead of having to make up a description or a name or that sounds real or some type of biographical details, the reader supplies it to me. So it works out great for me, and I sometimes the character's description.
Steve, I'm gonna cut us off right there. I'm gonna cut us off right there because we got a break sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment with my guest for the first hour tonight, author Steve Alten. Go check his website out, stevealten.com. SteveAlten.com. I assure you, you will not be disappointed. And as I said, his work, I find it an interesting mix of an escape from the insanity that we're surrounded by every day, but yet also exposing us to that same insanity, but with some logic and without fear. And as I said, his books, at least in my eyes, have a bit of a moral to the story, I guess you could say, right? There's a bit of a warning in his work, and I think he is one of the, in the future, he will be regarded as, somebody like we look back now at people like Philip K. Dick, and he was a great science fiction writer, and he was a great author. People already look at Steve like that now, but I think in the future people will look back at his work, some of his stories, and they will say, "Wow, he was trying to tell us something. He was trying to warn us." When we were getting into his putting characters in the book named after real individuals, readers, listeners, critics. I like that part. We got cut off by the break. So I'm going to have Steve rewind about a minute and just explain that in case you're just joining us now here after the first half hour. As I said when we were going into the break, Steve has this way of taking people and putting them, real individuals, into his work. And he was just explaining how people will message him, and when they go back and forth, he gets their information and their physical, their real, like, hey, Popeye, what do you look like? Well, I look like this, and then he can use the whatever description of I would give him as a character in one of his novels, and he does that a lot. So that's where we were at when we got cut off by the break. I'll let Steve reiterate that and where you can get in contact with him on his website and his email and everything. And then I want to pick his brain about another book, which I would consider to be another warning sign, another tale, another cautionary tale, as it were, called The Shell Game. But first, Steve, where can people get in touch with you for these contests or to sign up for the newsletter? Right at the website?
Yeah, if you go to stevealten.com, ALTEN.com, you'll see a place to sign up for your newsletter. It's just put your email address in there, and you get a free newsletter every month. And in the newsletter, I announce the character contest, and then it tells you what to do. And don't instant message me. Just follow the contest rules. And each book I pick about 40 to 50 characters, and immortalize them on the pages. And what's funny is that I used to think that killing a character off would be a bad thing for the character, but most of the people request to be eaten, of all things. So if I'm writing a Meg book, people say, can you have the shark eat me? And
well, that's actually
all sorts of fun things.
That's actually how the first time I ever contacted you years and years ago. I was in the Coast Guard. I sent you an email, and I said, "Could you do me a favor? I read your books, but you got to do me one favor. Could you not let the Coast Guard get eaten so quickly?" and I did notice over the years that in your further books, when you would put people in, the biggest. You would actually, even in emails, you had mentioned that the one grisly fate that everybody wanted was they wanted to be eaten by either the shark or by something else, that one of the other sea creatures that you write about in the Meg series.
Yeah, in Meg Hell's Aquarium, which was the fourth in the series, there's a scene where actually the character who influenced the scene was a guy who had emailed me, and he said that he was missing his legs from child deformity. And so I said, okay, how about if we have the shark eat your legs? And he just loved that. So the shark bit off his legs in the scene, and now he tells people that he lost it in a shark accident.
That's pretty cool. And I like the way that you again, it's this unique way that not many authors do that you would interact with your readers and immortalize them in a book. I think it's one of the neatest things that you do. And in case people are wondering what the Meg series is about, we're going to get into that because don't worry, that's one of my favorite book series that Steve has authored. It talks about megalodon sharks.
Well, Popeye, in the same book, Hell's Aquarium, while I was writing it, I got an email from Lana Wood, and I'm a fan of Lana Wood. Lana Wood is an actress who's the younger sister of Natalie Wood, who died tragically in a boating accident where she, supposedly drowned. Robert Wagner was on board, and, there's some accusations that he had something to do with it, but it turns out that Lana Wood is a big fan of mine, and her grandson loves sharks, and she asked if I would put her in the Meg 4 book. And I said, okay, what do you want me to kill you off? And she said, sure, whatever you want to do. And so I wrote this pretty gruesome scene where Lana gets it in the end, and I put her grandson in the book too. And before I included it in the manuscript, I sent her the scene. I said, I just want you to sign off on this because, after the way her sister passed away, to put her in the same type of situation was a little freaky for me. But she loved it. And after the book came out, we did a photo shoot of Lana Wood and her grandson in these huge megalodon jaws that are out in Arizona someplace, or about a 10-foot size megalodon jaw.
And for people that don't know what a megalodon is the ancestor to the great white shark. And they thought these things died a lot longer ago, but apparently now and you showed this in your books. This is one of the things that happens in Steve's books, where he takes real life information and he uses it to write his work of fiction. But it's like, really, is it a work of fiction? It's almost that real. And they found teeth that are actually much younger, megalodon teeth in the Marianas Trench that are much younger than they thought these things died off at. So that begs one, that asks the question: Do these things still exist today? Are they swimming around in the bottom of the Marianas Trench? I mean, we humans, and I say this all the time, we're so arrogant. We think we know everything about this planet, and there is, everything there is on it. We don't know anything. We've barely explored the oceans, the top half of them, let alone what's underneath it. So, I mean, who's to say that these things are, maybe they are swimming around in the bottom of the Marianas Trench. But How old was the megalodon teeth? I know you talked about it, Steve, in the book. What was the age range of the megalodon teeth they found in the Marianas? Like 10,000 years old or something, right?
Yeah, something like that. And they dredged it back in the 1800s, and 10,000 years is humans were around when megalodon was around. So
And
you never know what's down there.
and these things were the size of a bus. Picture a great white shark, all alabaster white. And the size of like a Greyhound bus, if not bigger, perhaps a semi-tractor trailer, 75 feet long. Just enormous. You've got pictures on your site, right, of the teeth, the jaws?
Yes.
They're just massive. I mean, huge. You could drive a car through these things. If you've ever been to the Museum of Natural History, they usually have a set or two of these things over the doorways to scare the crap out of people when you walk into like the shark and whale section. Those are, they might be, sometimes they're replicas, they might not be the real one, it might be a replica of a real jaw that they found, but these things were huge. I mean, the thought that they could get out, that they could still exist is one thing, and then in your books, you cross that barrier where you say, this thing gets out, and once it gets out, a 7.5 foot long great white shark running around eating everything, pretty much. And just wreaking total and utter havoc. I got to ask you, what made you want to write about megalodons? Like, what was the first thing that inspired you, or what was the catalyst, I should say, that inspired you to write the series? Because, it is a really well-loved series over the course of time now. And it's grown into, it's become its own entity. That out of all your work, all your work is great. But the Meg series alone, just it's almost like a flagship of the fleet, as it will. It is just enormous. What inspired you to write it, Steve?
Well, when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, I read Jaws, and the part about Jaws I loved was the shark. The rest of the stuff kind of bored me, but the shark scenes were terrific, and that made me do a lot of research on great whites and read everything I could that was basically nonfiction about great whites. And there was always a little blurb about Carcharodon megalodon, usually accompanied by a Smithsonian picture of 6 nerdy-looking scientists sitting in a jaw. And so I remembered that, and years later, when I was 35 years old and struggling to support a family of 4, I had picked up a copy of Time magazine in 1995, and there was a picture of the Mariana Trench on the front cover. And I read the article, and it talked about the Mariana Trench and talked about hydrothermal vents and life under the sea and in the darkness. And I just married the two ideas. I remembered, what was that giant shark that I remember reading about when I was a teenager? And I went to the library because there was no internet back then in 1995, and found the picture and found the name of the shark, and I set a goal, my goal was to become a published author, and this was the first book I was going to write. And so I worked on the book. I had a job, which I called JOB, at just over broke, and I was struggling a lot, and I basically wrote this story from 10 o'clock at night till 3 in the morning, and on weekends on an old-fashioned word processor on my living room table. And finished the original manuscript in about 6 months, and proceeded to try to find a literary agent who would represent it, and found one, and had to sell one of my cars to afford the editing fees. And Meg actually had a movie deal with Disney's Hollywood Pictures a week before the book went out to the 6 biggest publishing houses in the country, and I was fortunate to have everything work out at the same time and hit a grand slam my first time out.
And the series is so popular, and your writing style so unique, that I would say this is the one thing that's been probably ripped off by most people. If you go on Netflix right now, and people go on Netflix, they see giant shark versus mega octopus or something. All of that crap that is out there is a
Are you going to say I'm responsible for all the crap?
No, it's a ripoff of all of your great work, and I think it's. I actually think it
Well,
kinda,
I never wrote anything like Sharknado, so don't credit me for that.
Yeah, no, oh, that's horrible. But like, how does that stuff get made? And your work, that's actually intriguing the way you write. How could they not read one of your books, like the Meg series, and say, "Wow, this would actually make a good series"? But they make Sharknado. Really? I mean, that kind of gets a little frustrating, I guess. But your work is, to me, they rip off a lot of your work. I guess it's what do they say? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But
Well, I think there will be a Meg movie one day. I mean, my producer is finalizing some things, and hopefully there'll be an announcement in the next few months. And there's a difference between a $150 million independent movie and a $500,000 piece of crap that's shown on the Sci-Fi Channel. And I think Meg will have its revenge on all those things.
oh yes, it will, because once it finally comes out, it'll. Again, if they do it justice and they do it the way that you wrote it, you won't have any problems. The film series.
Well, the original script for Meg, when it was at Hollywood Pictures, was horrible, and then it was at New Line Cinema in 2005, and the two scripts that were written for that were pretty bad too. And so when I got the rights back, I hired my own producer and wrote the script myself. So I know what's in the script, and it pretty much follows the book. And so, it'll be maybe 16 to 17 years after I wrote the book, but it'll be worth the wait.
Sometimes the good things are worth waiting for, right? I mean, if it's going to get done right. The book, and again,
get done right.
Well, again, the book is not like, even if I don't want people to think that reading one of your books equates to one of those horrible Netflix movies, because, like I said, they're all ripoffs and hack versions that want to be even a tenth of what your books actually are. And if you read Steve's work, you'll see what I'm talking about. His work has a way of literally pulling you into the book. I mean, even if he named you as a character in a book, that's an aside. But literally, if you're just reading the book, you can envision it in your mind's eye. It's almost like you're stepping into a movie, and you can see everything around you. And that's credited to your writing style, Steve. And if Hollywood knew what they were doing and actually wanted to have a good series, they would try to keep their movie as close as they possibly could, if not 100% to the T of your book. I mean, there's no way, especially with the advent of CGI, there's no reason they couldn't do it exactly from page 1 to the end of the book. There's no reason that they couldn't do it now. Maybe 15, 20 years ago, technology was a little crappier. I could understand it. But now the book could actually be done justice. The whole series could be done the justice that it deserves. And perhaps maybe it's the universe's way of, saying, hey, it wasn't ready to be made yet. It has to be, if it's going to, like you said, if it's going to be made, it's got to be made right. So I'm looking forward to that. We got about 9 minutes left. I got to pick your brain about another work another book you've written, another piece of your work, another work of caution, a cautionary tale, as it were, The Shell Game. And a lot of the listeners to my broadcast can appreciate this. The Shell Game the Shell Game talks about false flag terrorism. It talks about the stuff that we've found out and uncovered since 9/11, the things that we've learned about the underbelly of our government, as it were. Is that where it inspired you to write The Shell Game, Steve? Was the events of 9/11, and then what's been uncovered since?
Well, originally it was about the end of oil, like we talked about a little bit in the Omega Project. And because when I started studying peak oil, I mean, the things that I was reading were shocking. I thought, okay, I want to write a novel about this. And then I read Michael Rupert's Crossing the Rubicon, which is a factual book, which he basically puts the Bush administration on trial in his book and subjects the reader to the evidence of what would basically implicate Rumsfeld, Cheney, and Bush and Condoleezza Rice for murder. And it was 9/11 Truth Movement before the 9/11 Truth Movement started. He's the one who started it all by presenting the evidence of what really happened on 9/11. When I read that book, that was just mind-blowing to me, and I realized, okay, I need my story to revolve around not just the last 9/11, but the next 9/11, which would be designed to get us into a war in Iran. And so I wrote the book, and when I finished the book, I contacted Mike Rupert through his attorney. He's a very paranoid guy and has reason to be so. He's had several attempted murders on his life, and I sent him an advanced reading copy of the book, and as he was reading the book, Mike would send me emails each night and call me a son of a bitch and things like that. But he was captivated by the book, and I was keeping him up reading all night. And after 3 days, he finished the book, and he said, "We need to get together. Tell me where you are. I'll fly into you." And so he flew in, and we spent 3 days together talking about the real-life situations, and he was warning me about certain things that would happen. Because even though it's a work of fiction, it ruffled a lot of feathers, and this was back when Bush was still in office. So, I actually had some threats, and it was about that time that I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, so I'm sure the stress didn't help the Parkinson's. But, the book became a minor bestseller, and I couldn't sell it. No publisher would touch it. Despite my track record, no publisher would touch it because they were afraid of it. And I finally, I actually put out an announcement in Publishers Weekly in their daily internet news, and said that the rights to the shell game were available. And I heard back about 20 minutes later from a fan of mine who was sales manager of a company called Cedar Fort Books. And he said, "Send me the book. We've never done fiction before. We're a Mormon house, but I'm a fan of your work. Let's take a look." And he read it and loved it, and his two owners read it and they loved it, and they created a fiction house within their own publishing house just to accommodate the shell game.
Wow. See, again, ladies and gentlemen, his work, I'm not kidding you when I tell you that his work is powerful. And if I don't say this because I'm a raving, 14-year-old fanboy of Steve's. I even made a joke to him, off air. During a break, I said, God, I sound like a fanboy at times, and I laughed. I appreciate Steve's work. I've been reading his books for a good portion of my life. I'm in my late 30s, and I've been reading his stuff for about 13 years. So, actually, no, even before that, I think 99 or 2000 is when I picked up your so like 14 years I've been reading his work. So, I see his work more than just, I'm a fan of his work. I see, again, cautionary tales in it, and one of the things I see in this book is you're pointing out, at least to the uninitiated, perhaps the people that aren't awake to 9/11, you use this as a way of exposing them to real information. I mean, this is a powerful book. If you don't buy anything else, if you don't like the Meg series, whatever, you don't buy he's got another book called The Loch, which is about Loch Ness, great book. And there's a lot of information, real information about Loch Ness in there. You should go check that out. It's another great book. But if you want to start off one book out of any of his books, if you want to use one book, we'll say, as a cautionary tale to somebody and give it to them as a gift, throw them The Shell Game. Great, great book. And I know, like you said, you did get, you caught some flack over that. I mean, obviously, you pissed somebody off, and something you must have written about must have been true, Steve. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten any threats, or you wouldn't have, they wouldn't have shown that you rustled their feathers.
Yeah, I was actually getting it from both sides because I got it from probably the intelligence agencies like the NSA, who basically just fired a warning over my bow and said that, I would get emails that were untraceable, and they would have all my personal information written in it. And just let them know that they knew who I was and what I was doing. And then I would get emails from the radical 9/11 groups, and I was actually getting phone calls at like 4 in the morning on my house phone, which is unlisted, from people who were just whack jobs and saying, how could jet fuel burn down a building when jet fuel only heats up to 1,500 degrees and it takes 3,200 degrees to melt steel? And my response to them was, hey, jerk off, if you read the book, you'll see that I covered that in the book, and why don't you read the book instead of calling me at 4 in the morning attacking me? It was ridiculous.
There is.
I'd have to think twice before I attack that subject again.
Yeah, there is a lot of that stuff. A lot of times, especially with 9/11, I find that and not only is it a very fragmented, the look into it, 9/11 truth, whatever you want to call it. I hate the word movement, but it's somewhat fragmented. But it's also attacked with a lot of misinformation, and I wonder if it was done just to push you away. From looking further into the subject, or even, perhaps building bridges with, other individuals, just because that's the kind of stuff that they do, like COINTEL-wise. I'm not saying that's what happened. Oh, one interesting thing. No,
COINTELPRO is exactly what they do. When the CIA wants to infiltrate a group, they don't attack the group. What they do is they join the group. And then they submit their own information to create disinformation amongst the group, so that, and I've gone to some of these meetings with these 9/11 people, and, I've had a woman sit down with me at lunch and say, well, the World Trade Centers were melted by lasers. And I just drop my lunch and say, you're exactly what gives the 9/11 groups a bad name, because you buy this disinformation tactics that's so ridiculous, that's designed to destroy the group's momentum, and that's exactly what happened. Or you get people yelling out, "Well, the Jews did it." Well, the Jews didn't do it, but the fact that you say something like that—that's what gets remembered, not the stacks of evidence that indicates that we knew the attacks were happening, that exactly what happened and how it was allowed to happen, because the jet fighters were pulled over the Atlantic Ocean instead of
the disinformation out there about 9/11 is and the stuff that's used to muddy the waters is heavy. Steve, we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming on today. Ladies and gentlemen, check out his books. Check out all of his work. SteveAlten.com. SteveAlten.com. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye, from FederalJack.com. It is November 1st, 2013. If you didn't hear hour 1, if you're just joining me, go check it out. I had author Steve Alten on the broadcast. Steve is an incredible author, ladies and gentlemen. I can't give the guy credit enough, really. His books will suck you in. I promise it only take about 2 or 3 days to read his books. It's the way it works. You start blowing things off for 2 or 3 days. You do. A lot of military men and women read his books as a way to distract from being out in the war zone, or being out on patrol or whatever, when they're not on duty or on watch. They're not standing a watch or whatever they have to do. And they're in their rack. A lot of times they read to relax if they can't sleep. And Steve's work is really well loved by the military. I was exposed to it before I was in the military, about 2 years before I joined, 2 or 3 years before I got in. But I read his books faithfully throughout the time I was in the military, because they're just a good. The stories are that good that. And it only takes 2 or 3 days to read one of his books. It could be 1,000. I'm not saying his books are, but he could write a 1,000-page book. Like Stephen King's The Stand. If Steve Alten wrote it, you'd probably be able to rip through it in 15, 20 minutes. His writing style is very unique. So go check his work out. SteveAlten.com. The Meg series is interesting. The thought of a 75-foot great white shark, basically an eating machine the size of a Greyhound bus just swimming around, that gives you pause when you look at the ocean. Because again, I say this all the time, we are so busy fighting over whose imaginary friend is cooler than whose, or what piece of sand was given to who by whoever, or who has the rightful, I'm the rightful owner of this piece of sand. We're too busy fighting over that rather than exploring the ocean. So we really don't know anything about what's down there, and we think we do. Humans are pretty arrogant when it comes to what we think we know, but we really don't know anything. So, interesting concepts. Okay, I want to get into analytical mode, because you all saw what happened today, right? Anybody that has the news, I'm sure. Although, it's not all over the front of Fox News, and surprisingly, it's not being pushed as much as you'd think. So it makes one wonder. You don't see the cry for gun control. I wonder if they're changing their tactics. But I mean, there will be those out there that say, "See, we need gun control." But okay, if you're not sure what happened, let me start from the beginning. If you're not sure what happened at LAX, just in case you haven't seen the news, there was a shooting. A gunman with a semi-automatic assault rifle shot and killed a TSA agent and wounded 2 others. Interestingly enough, the was it LA Sheriff or Police? Let me see. Get this right. Oh, I hope I didn't just close. No, I didn't. Okay. LA Ontario International Airport, but I don't know if it was SWAT officers. I guess it was Los Angeles Airport Police, Los Angeles Police Department, and I don't know if it was the Sheriff's Department was involved too. But okay, so it was the Airport Police and the Los Angeles Police Department, I should say, about a week ago, had an active drill over at LAX there. Oh yeah, interesting. Why did you have an active drill about a shooting in a lone gunman shooter? A week ago, there was a drill. Interesting piece of footage Joe showed me, by the way, before I came on. I have to find the YouTube channel so I can throw it out there. I'll try to find the link. Actually, if you look, Proof, I think the title is Proof the LAX shooting is a false flag or something like that. Just look that up and the video should come up on YouTube. And I'm not saying that this is definitive proof, but that's what it was titled. You fast forward about a minute and 57, like a minute and 57 in, and you'll see this video this guy was shooting with his video camera. In fact, you know what? I have it all queued up for you guys, actually. Let me do this for you instead of wasting too much time bloviating on it. I'll set it up and I'll let you guys hear it. But the video is a press conference, which from what I understand now is being cut out when they go back. If CNN plays something or if they use the clip or whoever else, they're cutting this piece out, probably for obvious reasons. But you have to see the video, because I can only do this so much justice talking about this, like on air, audio-wise. And I know I'm very descriptive with things, so I can give you guys a good mental picture, but still, you have to see the video, because the video says a lot. So the LA police chief is sitting there giving I don't know if he's the LAX police chief or I think he's the LAX police chief, because it looks like the LA police chief is standing next to him. So I think it's both chiefs from probably LAX and Los Angeles Police Department, which would make sense because those were also the both agencies that were involved with the drill. Anyway, he's the police chief is sitting here speaking and at the press conference, and he says, we just had this very drill last week. We just practiced for this very scenario, this scenario exactly to a T. And when he says that, there's 3 officers that are standing behind him in the background that they have what you'd call a tell. Okay? Many people know what I'm talking about when I say that. A tell is something that you do physically with your body, or a movement, a shift with your eyes, a flick of maybe even a tweak of a facial muscle. something that, like, if I was playing poker with you, I could tell if you were faking me out or not. A tell. Well, they have no poker face, right? So there's these three officers, and if you're looking at the video, and I'll play it for you, but if you're looking at the video, there's one to the left. If you're staring at the police chief, right, you're looking at it, it's our left, not his. On your left, if you're watching the video, there's an official. I don't know what his title is because I don't know who he is, but an official with like kind of like slick black hair, right? Slicked back black hair, and he's standing to the left of the police chief, and then to the right of the police chief there are two more officials, a white guy and a black guy behind him. They're both bald. Watch those two guys first with the video. Okay, and let me see what timestamp it's at here, so I can tell you guys exactly. It's at 1:44 in the video, so 1:44 into the video is where I'm going to play it from, and I want you to, if you're going to play along, the title is "Proof LAX Shooting Staged False Flag. LA Police Chief Interview Fail as He Admits Setup." Look it up on YouTube. You can mute it if you want. That way, or you could play it at the same time as I'm playing it. Doesn't matter. You'll just hear it in two spots. But fast forward it to 1:44, and that's where I'm going to play it from. Okay, so I'll give everybody about 10 seconds to go there, and when they do, we'll play it together. Okay, and like I said, mute. It's best if you mute the YouTube version and let the radio play, but watch the video. So when I say go and you hear it start to play, press play, and you can watch the physical reactions of these cops in the background. Now, this is what I would call a tell. This is something that I would, like I said, I would if I was undercover and I was looking for things and I was trying to decipher something. If someone was lying or things, this is one of the things I would look for, is different body movements. This is a way that you can tell if someone's lying to you. So our subconscious gives away more than we realize, okay? This is how professionals do this, by the way. The government employs people that do this to tell if people are lying or not, right? Behavior detection analysis and everything. Now they're trying to make computers. Anyway, this stuff is so blatant, it's right there. So I'm going to let this guy's video play. It's about the clip is probably about a minute and a half long, but everybody should be ready. Again, the title is "Proof LAX Shooting Staged False Flag." Everybody should have found it by now. Mute the audio on it. Fast forward it to 1:44 into the video. Here we go.
Facebook family, I just want to let you guys see this real quick. It's an interview with the chief police.
And by the way, the guy recording this, his name is Minister David Rodriguez. Minister David Rodriguez.
For the LAX shooting that just happened earlier today. While he's speaking, this is what I caught. This just came out. While he's speaking, he kind of stumbled over some speech. At that time, this guy in the back of the gray suited mare, and did you see the head with the glasses? And the guy behind the chief police here, this other chief, they kind of do something that kind of like made him aggravated. Like, man, you messed up. Like saying, Chief, you messed up. Come on, get it together. I mean, because they practiced this like they said. So you guys be the judge. I'm going to let it run. And you tell me what you think, guys. Check it out.
And unfortunately, it involved an officer-involved shooting. But that's what needed to be done in that particular situation. And that was heroic. We practiced to this not more than 3 weeks ago.
Now, when he says that was heroic, one of the guys that, and this is how you can tell, this is why I say it's a tell. Okay? The bald white guy to his right, when he says, he's talking about when the guy first starts to clip, and you hear the police chief say, well, that was an officer-involved shooting, and it was heroic. The bald white guy behind him, that in about 30 seconds is going to give another tell, nods his head in agreement. Because subconsciously he agrees with what the police chief just said. Now, that's an important point to make if you're watching the video, because this guy is the first one to set off this trigger of the three of them.
We took every one of our officers, our
out.
patrol officers,
It messes
and
up.
a couple of hundred officers from the Los Angeles Police Department, and we practiced the exact scenario that played out today. And I was talking to the officers involved in this particular incident a few minutes.
As soon as he said that, we practiced the exact scenario that played out today. The bald white guy puts his head down, just puts his head down like, oh. The bald black dude behind him with sunglasses on puts his head down like, oh. And the white guy with the slick back black hair standing to the left takes his hand and literally face palms it and rubs the bridge of his nose with his fingers like, oh, why did you, oh, Chief, shut up. That's what you could see going through their minds. And the reason I say that, to me, that is kind of a tell. And people are going to say, oh, are you jumping on this and saying it's false flaggery? Hold on. Just chill out for a second. Okay? I'm not jumping up and down on my desk screaming with a bullhorn. I'm pointing something out. Okay? This is something that stuck out to me right away. Right off the bat. And then when Joe sent me this, he's like, did you see this? Now, I'm looking at this video, okay? And as I said, you could say, well, it's being misconstrued or it's taken out of context, but it's not. If you watch the tell of the first guy, the bald white guy, when you first start playing the clip, at 1:44, it starts playing, when the chief says, the police-involved shooting was a heroic act, whichever shooting he was referring to, because there's multiple police-involved shootings recently in LA, right? So he could very well obviously be talking about this one, but a reporter could have asked him a question about something before. But he was answering a question, and when he says it was a heroic act, you see the guy, the first one again, the bald white individual on the right, he nods in agreement. I don't even think he realizes he's doing it. People do this all the time. They don't even realize they do it. We operate on autopilot, subconsciously. He nods in agreement with what he says. And you can see it's a positive nod because he doesn't just put his head down. He nods and looks back up, and you could see by his facial expression he's in agreement with what the police chief said. And then right after that is what comes when he says, we've been practicing this. And he puts his head down like, oh, the guy behind him, oh, and then the guy on the left face palms it. So maybe note to officials, you people are like so blatant, it's not even funny. If this is what it looks like. Yeah, I mean, really? And now this piece is being cut out. And I'm sure the mainstream media, if it's pointed out that it's cut out and it gets out there, will say, oh, well, we did it because the crazy conspiracy theorists, you know how they are. What one more way to label the crazy conspiracy theorists when I'm sorry, but that's a tell. Anybody that knows what I'm talking about and sees the video will see it. To me, that screams something. The fact that they had a drill with the LAX shooting a week ago. Why would an individual carry an assault rifle into an airport and randomly start shooting people? Honestly, if you were going to go into an airport and start shooting people, it would behoove you to actually probably carry a pistol because it's more concealable. You'd probably be able to do more damage because you'd be able to get, perhaps you'd be able to go a little more unnoticed. You wouldn't stand out so much. It just doesn't make any sense unless, of course, you realize that a year ago, they were training TSA for quote-unquote mass shootings by individuals with semi-automatic assault rifles. Like around, it was January 26th. January 26th of this year, there's multiple articles on this. Go back to January 26th of this year, and you'll see that TSA was receiving airport training, by the way, to save themselves in the event of a mass shooting. Not to save the passengers, but to save themselves. But they were being taught this and having these drills that there's going to be mass shootings at airports. And I don't recall there being mass shootings at any airports as of late. Now suddenly some dude walks in with an quote unquote assault rifle. It doesn't even, the term again, misnomer, but hey, let's not worry about that. We'll just keep using this label because it's a semi-automatic. We need to ban semi-automatics. That's right. Ban a technology that's like 200 years old. Yeah, well done. Really well done. Perhaps we should just get rid of toasters and electricity because, hey, we don't need that either, right? And gasoline engines, let's just get rid of that anyway. Don't even get me started. So this guy walks into an airport. By the way, airport, gun-free zone. You're just not walking around with a, no open carry protesters at the airport, we'll say. It's just not happening. People aren't strapping to their thighs. The only people I've seen at the airports with guns are, if they're traveling, they're checked in, and you're not checking in a loaded weapon. The rules, the rules for flying with a weapon to check it in and everything are pretty clear. So it's not like people are walking around strapped. Okay, most of the people, I'm sure there are people that walk into an airport to maybe drop somebody off or whatever that maybe have a concealed weapon in their pocket and just don't say anything here or there. I mean, I would be an idiot to not think that. But as a whole, it's not a place, again, it's quote unquote a gun-free area, right? I mean, it's sterile security. You have TSA right there. We're here to stop terrorists. Why would this guy go in and just randomly shoot up an airport? It doesn't. To me, it's just a little odd. So far, I can't say that it's a false flag event. It's going to be done to demonize guns. I mean, well, dude, they're trying to do that anyway. And honestly, there's going to continue to be focus on any little thing. Anytime someone shoots themselves in the foot, it's going to be on CNN because the news media probably has a directive to focus on any gun accidents or gun crime and make a big, what they call gun crime and make a big deal out of it so they can keep adding to the numbers and stuff. I mean, there was a police-involved shooting. The cops that shot the kid in California last week, the 13-year-old with an airsoft rifle, at the bottom of an article about it, it brought up Stand Your Ground Law and Trayvon Martin down here in Florida. And how do you equate the two? We need stronger gun control laws. But it wasn't a civilian that gunned down this kid with the airsoft rifle. It was your beloved police officers that are the ones that everybody says should be the only ones to have weapons because they're highly trained professionals. Yet they seem to keep shooting innocent people over in California. Anybody remember the Chris Dorner manhunt where they were lighting up people's cars that didn't even look like Dorner's vehicle? Yeah. But no, they're not trigger happy. But who should pay for that? Oh, the citizens. You shouldn't have the right to have guns because there's trigger happy cops out there. And why are there trigger happy cops? Because you've got them all amped up on fear, hating the citizens, thinking that the citizens are scum and out to get them. And then when the citizens do get pissed off at a police brutality event, the powers they shouldn't be, go ahead and use that to reinforce their programming into the police. And it causes that divide to be much, much bigger. Anyway, my analysis of this so far is that it's very odd. I'm not ruling out that it could be an event or something, but so far I haven't seen, and I'm sure we will, but I haven't seen the news attack it the way they have other things. So perhaps perhaps there's something there that could be some semblance of truth to it. The guy could have been really maybe disgruntled. I don't know. So there's all different stories. He was pissed off at TSA. Apparently he's still alive, so that's another interesting aspect, that they didn't shoot the guy in the head and that he's still alive, although that has happened lately, and who knows what will happen to the guy in prison, or they'll just inject him and put him in a loony bin wing somewhere for the rest of his life and keep pumping him up on Thorazine. Who knows? Oh, he's crazy, and he thinks the government is out to get him. I've heard that already. The guy didn't like the government. Why? Because he was pissed at TSA? I mean, you don't know the facts, and the media is already running out there trying to create the story for you and create the narrative. I won't do that. I don't know what's going on, but I can say for sure that is shady. What I just talked about with the tell and the police's face and the fact that there was a drill, that's shady. Let me ask you this. Why do these events always happen in gun control, loving states, gun-free zones, and in spots where there's either a drill going on at the same time or they just had a drill about the same thing? Why does that happen? Because that's not coincidental. If it keeps happening, it's called a pattern, ladies and gentlemen. Once, twice, maybe. I don't really believe in coincidence, but I believe it can happen. But I'm not a firm believer in labeling everything as coincidence. I'll put it that way. So twice, maybe coincidence. 3 times conspiracy, because it's a pattern. You have to. You can't see this any other way. Well, of course it's a pattern, Popeye, because people have too much access to guns and mental health. We need to curb the Second Amendment and put everybody on SSRI drugs and make sure nobody has access to anything and make sure everybody's on all sorts of pharmaceuticals and drugged up. Really? Because that doesn't have any implications for control, right? Drugging an entire society and getting everybody to label each other mentally, oh my God, you're mentally unstable, I'm so scared of you. Let's take away the guns. Oh yeah, that's never been used before in history to collapse a society or take over a country or a people or subjugate anyone. No, I would be a fool to actually believe that. Oh, wait a minute, it has? What? Hold on, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. My assistant is coming over to me right now and telling me I'm a complete idiot and that history actually is repeating itself. Of course, I'm being sarcastic, but anyway, I digress. So, I don't know the full story of what's going on with this LAX shooting. You know how I am. I like to take a few days to weigh out everything and go over the evidence. I will tell you it looks very shady right off the bat. The fact, that it happened on a Friday, is one of the red flags as to why it's shady. People are going to say, why is that? I'll get into that on the other side of the break because the break's coming up in about a minute and a half. I'll get into that, why it's shady, but aside from the obvious stuff like I just said, there's a few other aspects to it that I don't know if people are looking at it this way. A lot of people would initially jump on this thing and say, it's about the guns, they're trying to take the guns, which they will, I'm sure, attack. Oh my God, he got into an airport with an AR-15. We need to put up, more secure airports. TSA needs to have guns, even though they're scumbags. They're caught stealing, and they've never actually stopped a terrorist. They're gonna play the fact this is the first TSA agent that lost his life in the line of duty. I'm willing to bet the president will have this guy's mom at the White House, or his family, or his wife, or whoever at the White House within the next week. They're gonna make the TSA agent the first TSA agent line of duty death. They're gonna blow that up. You watch. They're gonna blow that thing all over the place. They're gonna they're gonna ride that pony until it's dead. You watch. I can see it already. That's one of the things they're going to do. But anyway, will they push to arm TSA? Who knows? Perhaps. I'm sure they're going to push for probably more, stricter security at the airport, which I don't know. Again, really? What more strict security, beside from a full-on body cavity search right there at the checkpoint, could you have? I obviously the guy wasn't a terrorist. It's just this whole thing. It seems shady. Maybe he was a terrorist, and that's why they don't want us to know. Because who knows, right? But we have to take a few days to look at this stuff. I don't want to just jump right on it. But again, one of the first things that sticks out to me is this guy's video. Like I said, the the reaction of the police and their faces and their physiological reactions is interesting, to say the least. We'll say. So let's keep an eye on this. And when we get back from break, I'll tell you a few other things, a few other reasons why I think this could have occurred today. Stay tuned. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment of tonight's live edition. Before I forget, I might as well tell you guys now, from the 19th till about the 1st of December, I will not be, technically live every night. I'll be doing a couple shows from the road and uploading some pre-recorded interviews that I've already done off air in expectation of going on this road trip. But I'm going on a road trip. I'm going to Dallas, and I'm going to investigate a few other things while I'm out on the road. I turned it into a road trip / investigation. I'm going to Dallas for the 50th of JFK's assassination, the 50th anniversary. I'm going to get a chance to meet in person a lot of the people over the years that I've interviewed, get some interviews with them in person, go from there. But I'm also going to get a chance to investigate a few other things. So I'm going to be on the road for about 2 weeks. So I'll be doing some stuff. I'll be doing some stuff. From the road. I'll be, as I said, I've been doing a lot of. I've been taking a day off here or there the past couple weeks to do some stuff off air. I've been doing a lot of off air interviews and getting them ready to upload them. And set up to so that you guys can listen to them while I'm on the road. Say I have a night where I don't pump in live, I can at least hook you guys up and let you hear an interview with someone like for the JFK assassination week when I'm going to be down in Dallas. You guys are going to get a chance to hear an interview I've done with Judith Baker about David Ferry. You're going to get a chance to hear my interview with Beverly Oliver, one of the last surviving witnesses, literally who was standing right there filming when Kennedy had his head blown off. She was like 20 feet from him. Okay, I'm going to actually get a chance to hang out and meet Beverly when I go to Dallas, but I've interviewed her already. Very powerful interview. The lady is the epitome of a Southern belle. Just awesome human being, Beverly Oliver. So you're going to get a chance to hear from her and others. So I'm really excited. Plus I have a couple... I'm putting together at least 2 special JFK broadcasts for you guys. So, with a bunch of different evidence in case for the newer listeners that don't know about the JFK assassination, instead of saying to you, just go back through my older archives, I'm going to put together a compilation of different audio clips and some evidence from over the years, obviously with me explaining who it is and what it's about and stuff. But you're going to get a chance to hear a lot of the evidence that proves that yes, there actually was a conspiracy. It wasn't some crazy lone nut gunman. So I'm excited to say yes, I'm going to Dallas. So I just wanted to let everybody know that's what's coming up. So the next few weeks will be interesting, but just tune in every night because there will be something here. Whether I'm live from the road or I throw one of the special pre-recorded broadcasts for you guys on. Either way, there will be something new for you guys every night. So stay tuned for that. So I've been putting a lot of work into this after hours because this has to get done. So little to no sleep the past few weeks. My entire sleeping schedule has been completely reversed. I'm like a vampire. I sleep for a few hours during the day now when I get a chance. And I do a lot of my bulk of my work after I get off air at night. When it comes to like rendering archives or doing pre-recorded, editing and rendering the pre-recorded interviews and stuff for future shows, because that's when I have some quiet time, to myself, where I can lock myself in my studio and just disconnect myself from the internet and Federal Jack. It's hard to do all this stuff and run a website too, because it's two different. You have to put your brain in 2 different modes, and sometimes you get. You'll be in the middle of doing one and you get sidetracked and start doing the other one, and then you go back to the other. I'm not complaining. Goose fraba. Anyway, so just wanted to throw that out there. So the LAX shooting. I said when we went to break that there was something else that makes me think that, could be more to this than some pissed off guy, whatever. I mean, it just doesn't make sense that these all of a sudden. By the way, if you've noticed, all of a sudden under the Obama administration is when the AR-15 assault rifle, these maniacs, they kill everyone with the AR-15 assault rifle. There wasn't this surge of this when Bush let the quote-unquote assault weapons ban expire, right? And and Congress let it expire. And Bush didn't push for anything further, and they didn't play ball because some people in Washington wanted them to push for it again, and they didn't, right? So, and for whatever reasons, the point is, The world didn't end the next day. It's not like everybody ran out and bought rifles and suddenly there was firefights in the streets. This stuff only starts happening when there's this push for, oh my God, we need gun control. It looks a little shady. And the fact that it only happens in certain states where they're gun control loving states. How come this stuff doesn't happen in the middle of like Montana? Because everybody in the town in Montana that it could possibly happen in would probably be armed and shoot the person. And in certain sections, they'd probably gut him and hang him from a tree because it'd be out in the wilderness. They'd leave him out for the bear or whatever. Just, there's a lot of aspects, I guess you could say, of these events that need to be looked at. Make one at least go, And by the way, you're not nuts if you ask a question. Okay, so don't let somebody make you feel bad if you ponder something and you think out loud and you say something and they say, what are you, a conspiracy theorist? You say, no, I'm a conspiracy realist. Shut your mouth and educate yourself. Make sure you stand up and, don't let someone push you into a corner just because you ask questions, because that's one of the biggest problems right now. Is our conspiracy theories ruining society? Really? Who's that put out by? The BBC. Oh, gee. I wonder why they put that out. Anyway. So, what's another thing? What's another reason? What about Obama and his executive order? Oh, what executive order, Popeye? Oh, see, it's a Friday. Everybody knows how this president and his administration does things. And every administration has their own little nuances here and there, how they play the media and keep things off the radar. But it's a Friday, and he loves to sign executive orders on a Friday because it's the end of the news cycle. You see, Saturday and Sunday are the two crappiest days of the news cycle. Sunday has the Sunday morning news programs, on some of these bigger name shows and networks. They have like their Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon broadcasts and whatnot, and they kind of prep the field for Monday, but they still have their Sunday morning talk shows and stuff. Saturday is dead news day, totally dead. I mean, you don't have any of these big name shows on a Saturday, right? Because people are out about, they're not paying attention. They're not going to be watching and possibly buying any of the crap that's advertised Monday to Friday. Get it? So Monday to Friday is when all the big news happens. And these executive orders, these guys love to sign them in the Obama administration. Him and his auto pen love to sign things at, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. Because it'll only be in the news cycle maybe that evening for a brief blurb, and then that's it. And then Saturday, no one's really talking about it. Who cares? No one's watching the news anyway on a Saturday. Likewise, on a Sunday, people really aren't watching the news. And by Monday, it'll be covered up by Lindsay Lohan and her underwear, or now it's Miley Cyrus and her twerking little butt and sticking her tongue out. I mean, people, hello? She's MK Ultra mind control puppet. You should feel bad for the kid. She's probably been abused. If you understand the way things go, you look at her, you feel almost pity for her because of how pathetic of a human that she actually is because of what she's been put through. So you feel pity for someone like that. But that's the kind of crap that they'll put on Mondays. Oh my God, was Miley twerking at a McDonald's this weekend, or whatever other garbage that they want to talk about. But they won't tell you about his newest executive order. This one happens to be about climate change policies. Or so they say. But see, the words that are used inside of it are key. It forms a little council to advise the president, well, at least they say, to advise the president. A task force, they call it, of state and local officials to advise the administration on how to respond to severe storms, wildfires, droughts, and other potential impact of climate change. First of all, here's a potential that you guys haven't talked about. How about geoengineering? What's fueling a lot of the climate change? Oh, we don't talk about that now, do we? Because that's a conspiracy theory. Popeye, geoengineering doesn't exist. What are you, one of those chemtrail dicks? Yeah, I'm one of those guys. Just so you know, geoengineering does exist. Weather modification does exist. They've been doing it for over 50 years, and if you don't think they've perfected it and gotten to a level that you really might not be able to comprehend, well, they have. So, time to grow up. 12, 13 years ago, you would have laughed if I told you they'd have cell phones streaming YouTube videos and movies and TV and Netflix and everything. And what the hell is Netflix? Right, exactly. Netflix is something that just started on the internet. You can only get DVDs. What's instant streaming? What's that, Popeye? Right, exactly. Now you can stream to your phone. Watch videos on your phone. You can video Skype with people. You can literally have a conversation on Skype, video conversation. So don't tell me that that technology isn't advancing at a rapid rate. And don't be so asinine to think that what they have, well, they're only like 3-4 years ahead of us. Pfft. Try 40 years ahead at least. Stop it. Don't fool yourselves. Don't fool yourselves. What's that old saying? The greatest trick the devil ever pulled on the people of the world is convincing them that he didn't exist. Yeah, well, the greatest trick that the government ever pulled on the citizens is getting them to think that it's inept and stupid. Right. When you act dumb, people expect less of you, and they pet you on the head and they turn their head the other way. And while their head is turned the other way, you can pull money out of their pocket, rape them, steal their kids, do whatever you want. And that's what government does best. Just saying. Anyway, so this little event happens on a Friday. Everybody's focused on that. And while they're focused on that, nobody is focused on this executive order. And in this executive order, this task force, see, this task force, one of their goals uses a word that is very familiar to anybody that knows Agenda 21, uses a catchphrase label that they like to use to make it sound so loving, so it's so right, it's so intelligent, it's just the right thing to do. It's called sustainability. When you hear the word sustainability, you think Agenda 21. You think Rewilding Project. I'm going to have to do another broadcast on this. Joe and I did a broadcast on this about 1.5 years ago. It's been that long, about a year and a half ago. I think it was like 2011 when we did it. 2011, end of 2011, beginning of 2012, somewhere around there. I think it was like 2011 now. We went over the Rewilding Project, Agenda 21. I'm going to have to go back into this with you guys. For the newer listeners that might not know what Agenda 21 is, I'm going to have to get some guests on again that I've talked about this with in the past. This is real. This thing isn't about climate change, because that whole thing was crap anyway. That was all a ruse. I mean, yeah, it wasn't just to bring about carbon credits and that. I mean, that was one of the things. That was one of the things they were going to do, but it was a way for them. A way for them. My throat is dry. Let me take a swig of some water. Hold on. It was a way for them to push this agenda, Agenda 21, the agenda for the 21st century. And, I mean, yes, again, they would make money off carbon credits. These guys don't just do things for one reason, so it's never just about money. The money is an aspect to it, and with the money comes control and things like that, so that gets them off. But that's not just what it's about. Remember, if it didn't push their larger agenda forward, it wouldn't be done. Doesn't matter who would benefit from it, how much money they'd make. If it didn't benefit this overall larger agenda that the bloodlines, their families have been pushing for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Okay. These same bloodlines, I mean, the bloodlines go back thousands of years, so, I mean, and you read what some of them wanted thousands of years ago. Everybody wants to be a tyrant. Anyway, it's an agenda. Agenda 21 comes out of the UN. Agenda 21 is going to take away everything all of us own and put us in, and not that it's a group that's going to come do it, but it's the idea for the 21st century is that pretty much rewild these countries. The United States, put everybody in megacities, compact, planned opolis, where they dictate every aspect of your life. I'm going to get into Plandopolis and the Rewilding Project and all that stuff on it. I'm going to do another broadcast on it because it's like 2 hours. I could spend 4 hours talking about it. Joe and I think we did 2 hours when we did the broadcast on it. We did my show on it, but I think we did his show and then my show. I think it was either 3 or 4 hours we ended up doing worth of broadcast on this one night because this is that serious of a topic. See, people don't understand. They see Obama signing executive orders. Oh, he's a tyrant. Oh, and they start slamming their fists down. You're being short-sighted. It's not him. Oh, he's the one doing it. If Romney were in, no, I want to slap you when you say that. Well, if Bush were in, no, I really want to slap you. Pull your heads from your butts and realize what's going on. There's a much larger agenda here. This isn't about Obama being a dictator. He's a Muslim. He's secret Muslim. We're all going to be infidels here in this country. We're all going to be running around. Damn Arab. Oh my God, 9/11. Osama bin Laden. Take your Army Strong bumper sticker off the back window. Okay? Take your head from your butt and listen to me, Mr. America. This is real. This is about Agenda 21. When you hear the word sustainability, think Agenda 21. And I'm going to go into it further, Agenda 21-wise, in the future, like I said. Look up Rosa Corey. She's a very busy lady. I'm trying to get her on as a guest. But look her up. Look up her book, Behind the Green Mask. There's lectures she's done. People have recorded it, whatever, lecture or speaking, whatever you want to call them, speaking engagements. Go look it up. Go look it up on YouTube. Look up Rosa Corey. This lady knows what she's talking about. Go look up, there's another guy. I think his name is Ian, and I can't remember right now. I'm going to slap myself. I'll have to, when I do the show on Agenda 21 and Rewilding Project, I'll have a list of different researchers you should look into too, because some of the stuff I'll even play some clips from them so you guys can hear what they have to say about it. But this stuff is real. Just look up Agenda 21. My little brother just messaged me the other day. We were talking, and he said he was telling me how the childhood house that he's my stepbrother, and the childhood house that I grew up in was on the same street that he lived on. And he said to me, hey, I know your house, I saw your childhood house, they redid it, doesn't even look anything like it. And he sent me a link to see so I could see what it looked like. So we start chatting, and he goes, he's telling me, I said, wow, look at the property taxes up there are ridiculous. I said, wow, look at the property taxes. They're like $3,000 more than they were when my mother lived there, 10 years ago. Wow, she's been dead 10 years. Time flies. Anyway, so we got into this conversation. He goes, oh, yeah, there's a new tax now. I said, what's that? He goes, well, you have to, it's a form of a tax, I guess you could say. And I had explained to him what the impervious service tax that some of these cities are doing. But basically he had a choice. He had to pay more. He would have ended up paying more in property taxes because he had some walkways that were in front of his house that were there from when the house was built, 30, 40 years before, and he wanted to put a pool in the backyard. So in order to offset the pool, the ecological damage from the pool, his carbon footprint, the town told him that he had to get rid of a certain amount of impervious surfaces on his property, i.e. all the walkways. So he didn't have to get rid of his driveway because he has a nice wide driveway that's, again, been there since the house was built. Okay? Huge driveway, and it's a wraparound the way the driveway works, because it's got a driveway that goes right up into his front door, or the garage doors, but then there's a bit of a wraparound. There was a tree in the front, and the driveway kind of wrapped around it. And then there was walkways and stuff. Well, he had to get rid of all those walkways and a bunch of that stuff. in order to have the pool in his backyard to appease the town and then not have his property taxes go up. Do you see what they're doing? Well, I want to put a pool in my backyard. When I was a kid, you applied for the permit, paid the town the permit. I mean, permits and all that stuff are crap, but paid the town the permit, and then you bought your pool if you could afford it and put the pool in your backyard. That was it. Whether it was an above ground, in ground, whatever. He wants to put a pool in his backyard for his daughter. And this is the house that the kid grew up in, by the way. It's not like he went out and bought some fancy house. This is the house he grew up in. So the house he got it from his father. He didn't just go out and just willy-nilly pick some house and, well, it's his fault. He bought the new house. He should have known. No, he's lived there his whole life. And now he has to rip up walkways that have been in the front of his house that he grew up running around on as a kid so he can have a pool in his backyard for his kid because the town wants to make it an even trade-off. Well, and he said to me, the key words were impervious surface. Meaning that it can't, when it rains, the water can't seep through it. These are key words. When you hear sustainability, when you hear, people being taxed for the rainfall falling on their driveway, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, because he's going to have a pool that holds this much water. Now he has to get rid of a certain amount of surface area that retains water and doesn't allow it to leak into the ground, soak up into the ground. This is the town I grew up in. This is one of the reasons I don't live there, but this is going on in all towns. No matter where you live, this is the Agenda 21 is being put in at a local level. Okay, so that's what this executive order that he put this task force together for. It's just to help them use climate change, air quotes, climate change, as an excuse to further push Agenda 21. That's what this executive order is about. It's not about Obama. It's not about him being Hitler or Stalin. No, it's about him pushing the agenda of his puppet masters. And that would be Agenda 21. A global agenda, ladies and gentlemen. Pairs up with Codex Alimentarius. Anyway, so seeing that this executive order was signed today, and you really don't see much news media coverage about it. No. What you do see a lot of coverage is focused on the LAX shooter. So is it a possibility that this event could have occurred to cover up and take media attention away from the executive order? It's happened in the past. There seems to be a pattern where an executive order like this or something will come out, and at the same day, something is in the news to distract you. Or an event takes place somewhere, and whether the news media, whether it's a real event and the news media just runs to it wastes all your time covering it as a way to not talk about the executive order, or, which does happen from time to time, or there are times that the events could be staged because it's very questionable. Now, they wouldn't have to stage every event. They could take it. They literally could take advantage of some real events and use media coverage of them to hide things. And it would also serve to be able to say, "Look, we didn't fake that. That was a real event. So we didn't fake any of these other ones." The best place to hide a lie, ladies and gentlemen, is in between two truths. Understand that. It's how car salesmen sell you things. It's how politicians sell you what you want to hear. I'll repeat that again for you so you understand. The best place to hide a lie, ladies and gentlemen, is in between two truths. One more time, because this is, if I could leave you this weekend with any piece of information and get you to look at something, anything, with a bit of a different perspective, understand this. Again, the best place to hide a lie is in between two truths. Go read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. In order to understand how these people think, you have to be able to get into their mindset and understand them, or you don't stand a chance. And again, I'm not saying the LAX thing is staged or not. I don't have enough definitive evidence to say yes it is or no it isn't. but I can say that there's a lot of red flags, and like the stuff I pointed out with the cops and the face palming, that's interesting. The fact that there was an executive order signed today about climate change. Again, when you hear the words sustainability, when you hear things like impervious surface tax, or excuse me, impervious surface, like a driveway. Oh, your driveway collects too much rainwater. Tax! Well, it's a way for them to tax you and rape you, but it's also pushing the agenda. Agenda 21, the Rewilding Project. It's real. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. And this show went by fast. I'll see you all again live this coming Tuesday. I have an interesting lineup the next couple weeks of guests. And Nick Redfern is coming back on again. Excited about that. He's coming back on the 12th. We're going to be talking about Men in Black for 2 hours. Real stories and more. Ladies and gentlemen, the solutions to our problems are an inside job. I love you all. I'm out of here.